All right, it's your boy Mirage the Assassin. I'm back. Time for another classic. Just want to greet the ladies and gentlemen. Come through the door, give you some time to sit down. You know, pull your pen and paper out, take some notes. Because we're gonna go over a lot of themes and topics and concepts in tonight's tape. All right. So we're gonna I guess this is the dealing with the Passover time. So earlier while I was out, sitting under the moon, you know what I'm saying, on a gelato, and just got a lot of spiritual inspiration, from within, from the heart, and even through the mind. And I just wanted to come and, pass it on to the people out there, whoever you may be, a man or a woman, young or old, no matter what your ethnicity is, no matter what your nationality is, no matter what your religion or your culture is, whoever you may be, this is for you in this, spirit of courage. But in particular, as usual, with all my tapes, with all the classes I drop, it's really for you brothers, that are living, somewhere in the estates of what we call North America. I really want you all to get it. And I want you all to feel this messianic energy that Blackbeard is bringing in this tape. All right, so we're going to go over the some messianic history, and I guess through this history, you can see that there are people in your ancestral bloodline, your ancestral lineage, from North America that had the messianic energy themselves, and they were able to do good things with it, So we're going to look into that a little bit, and we'll also look into some of the members of these secret societies that I have mentioned in previous tapes that may have been involved in very, very perverted, degraded, and sick things. But nevertheless, they have other good information, and they will drop the truth in certain things. So we're going to look into one of the meditations of the person by the name of Aleister Crowley and his meditative or mental encounter or spiritual encounter with an entity that he called an AWAS, which really is just another form of the messianic energy, that our people represent. All right. So you brothers, I want you all to pull the messianic energy out from within you, from within your heart, from within your mind, and let Yahweh or Yeshua, work through you. You know what I'm saying? Let the spirit of David work through you, because that's a spirit of courage, and it's a spirit of, no bullshit. It's a spirit of combativeness. It's a spirit of competition. It's a spirit of winning. And when I say competition, I mean when you're going against the adversarial forces, whether that be those wicked cherubim and seraphim we talked about, or some of these wicked people on this planet, or some of the wicked illnesses and diseases that may be lurking in the air, trying to get into your, immune system. Whatever it may be, you just have the energy to fight it. So we're talking about using the messianic energy in the mental sphere, using the messianic energy in the emotional sphere, using the messianic energy in the physical sphere, and also knowing historically, a little bit about the messianic energy. All right. So I just had to, give that little introduction so we'll know what time it is in tonight's tape, and just know that you need to apply this to, your growing journey to becoming that real American conqueror, and getting your own life together. You know what I'm saying? Establishing whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, and then whenever you do that, you'll slowly branch out from that. And also, let me say this too. When we talk about the messianic energy, we have to understand that this is something that's cosmic, and this is something that is an extension of the higher power, Allah, God, Yah, whatever we want to call it, or whatever you may want to, give the name to it. But nevertheless, the messianic energy is something that is cosmic, all right, in nature. So it will always be around as we're incarnating and shedding these bodies over and over through, throughout the circles of time. So I'll also understand that some of the messianic things you do with your courage are going to lay down, the foundation for another generation to come after you and do the rest of the work. And a good example I can give you would be the movie Terminator. All right. So let's take Sarah Connor. In the first movie Terminator, when you had Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was a Terminator sent to kill Sarah Connor. And Sarah Connor basically was going to be the mother of the future Messiah. Okay. Sarah Connor was going to be the mother of the future Messiah. And in the future, that Messiah grew up to basically, destroy the evil artificial intelligent government that was ruling over everything. All right. And restore the New Jerusalem. Because in tonight's tape, we're going to talk about New Jerusalem as well. So, Terminator was sent to basically kill the mother. Now, of course, if you've seen Terminator, you already know how that story goes. But just think about how Sarah Connor, the mother, laid down the foundation, and with her courage by fighting that Terminator and killing him off, even though it was another one sent to, try to do the dirty work again, at least the child was able to be born and, go through that whole process and actually grow up to, actually fight the Terminator one day, in the future when he got to be the grown Christ figure, the full Messianic figure. And also another thing, you brothers got to understand that, you're not going to become the full Messianic archetype overnight. You got to give yourself time to grow. You got to give yourself time to have different experiences and gain certain wisdom from those experiences, so don't rush it. You know what I'm saying? Know that that energy is inside of you, and it's going to use your vessel to achieve good things in this life for not only yourself, but even people around you. But it knows that it has to, slowly, express itself through your body, and you have to be ready to take all that power when it fully awakens within you. All right. A lot of that sounds very, very abstract, and that's okay, but just get the basis of what I'm saying. Just be patient with yourself. All right. But going back to what I'm saying, what happened is that, when Sarah Connor is able to birth the Christ archetype, he grows up. He faces the evil, the adversary, the satanic force. He faces it. He destroys it. And then now the New Jerusalem is restored. So we're going to read a little bit about the New Jerusalem as well. All right. So let's see exactly where we want to start. We're going to read through several things. I got a book. We got several things we're going to read through. All right. Give me a few seconds. I'm going to just look through some stuff just to make sure we organize. That's kind of part of my thing. I got to be organized. All right. Okay. All right. So we got everything organized like we want. Yeah, so basically, like I said, before we get into our reading, I want this point to really hit home about that spirit of courage. It's very, very, imperative at this time. And a lot of you brothers, I want you all to be very, very confident in yourself and and be courageous in everything you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Know you can achieve this shit. Know that there's nothing that can come in your way. Know that you're unstoppable. Know that you always are becoming the Christ more and more and more and more and more. Because see, you are already the Christ right now. But the thing is you're going to become it on higher levels. And that's also when it comes to understanding. See, we may know certain things and we may even understand certain things, but we have to accept and acknowledge that we may only understand them on certain levels. So get this. When you understand something, it's like an onion. That onion peels back and it has several layers. And each layer is deeper and deeper in getting you to the core root. That core root will be the greater understanding. So each layer is almost like a lesser understanding. So you may understand something on the outer surface, but you got to peel that layer back and then go to the next level of understanding. And the way you'll be able to do that is by humility and by acceptance. I repeat, the way you get to the core level of understanding is by humility and acceptance. Because by being humble, you'll allow different experiences to come into your life where you can get that opportunity to get that greater level of understanding. And then by acceptance, by you accepting that experience and whatever it is that whatever go down in the experience, whether it be good or bad, whether it make you feel, happy or sad, but you accept it, that'll allow you to peel just a few layers back to get deeper to that core understanding. So all this that I'm talking about is what it allows what we call the higher self, or the higher power, or the messianic energy from within the Yeshua or the Yahushua from within, the Heru from within, the hero from within, you know what I'm saying? Or that Messiah from within, all right? The courageous one from within. We'll allow that to fully express itself through our personality, through our mind, through our behavior, and you'll have a very, very, you know, fruitful and healthy and prosperous life. You know what I'm saying? All right. So before I get into the other readings, we're gonna deal with this right here. All right. So this is book I got called the Exodus Mandate, and it's pretty cool because it just goes through, you know, some of the things that Moses may have been thinking as he went through this whole ordeal, as we know of the story of Exodus. All right. Now I'm not coming here and telling you that, you know, any of these things were, you know, real historical events or any of this stuff, but what I will say is that throughout time, before these stories were written, during the times when these stories were written, and of course long after these stories were written, the events, all right, and the archetype or the template type situations, and you know, the things that go down, the different happenings in what we call the Old Testament or the so-called Bible, you know, those events go down in real life. You know, how many of you all know a story of a single mom, but she had a child, you know what I'm saying, and the child ended up becoming this, you know, great person? Like that's kind of like the damn LeBron James story. Like, didn't his mom, you know, so-called have him in the ghetto or in a manger, you know what I'm saying, and he grew up to be, you know, kind of like a hero in a certain way, was able to, I guess, take care of his family and stuff and pulled him out of that situation. That's Christ-like, or that's Messianic life for his family in his little micro reality, you know, his little universe, you know what I'm saying? He's a Messianic figure for that. So what I mean is that these stories play out in archetype ways every day around us. So that's what's real about it, you know, and that's what I want us to get out of it. But this is a little part right here that's pretty cool. I just want you all to check this out and think about it. I have surely seen. Now this is a part where the Most High, or God, Allah, you know, whatever you want to call it, is speaking to Moses, you know, and is speaking on the problems and, you know, the suffering that the people of the earth have been going through. Because I know a lot of people are wondering, like, man, like, you know, the higher power. A lot of people, our question is God even fucking real? You know, a lot of niggas are into this conscious shit and, you know, or all this different stuff. And even when we say that we're God as individuals, as a little G, what we all truthfully do really want to know is the big God real? You know, the one that we all are an extension of. You know, where is bruh at? You know what I'm saying? Or where is sis at? Or whatever it is. Like, you know, where is God? You know what I'm saying? A lot of folks may be wondering that. So at this point in the time in the story, where the Israelites, you know, were captured in chemical Egypt. Remember, we talked about chemical Egypt. You know, the higher self or the higher power, you know, responded, you know. So let's see what it was saying to Moses in Exodus. I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Now that milk and honey is very, very important because, you know, the land of milk and honey is going into that New Jerusalem, basically. Or in other words, just a restored earth, you know, a restored earth. All right. And that's something that our ancestors did. That was a goal of theirs, you know, and I've talked about that before, but when the American Republic was reestablished, I'll say, in the late 1700s, all right, the Moorish ancestors at that time in the Americas, North America in particular, wanted to reestablish a New Jerusalem. What was a New Jerusalem? All right, let's go into that real quick. Because remember now, they say that the Messiah reestablishes the New Jerusalem. During this time, there was a lot of religious persecution going on in Europe, or what we call Europe. You know, people were being persecuted based on their religion. People were being persecuted based on their culture and heritage, their ancestral lineage. You know, you still had the Inquisition going on. People were being persecuted based on a lot of different things, all right? And at this time, the West, or the Americas, was always known to basically be the opposite of that. It was known to be a more laid back, more place of abundance, more place where you can just be yourself, but everybody can, be in happiness with themselves, and be able to be different, but still be able to get along. All right. Now, this is also something that they don't want to tell you about the Moorish kingdoms that were in southern Europa, and also in the so-called Middle East, and also in Northwest Africa, or Mexico. They don't want to tell you that during the time of these the Moorish reign, which was really earlier than 711, and it didn't end really in 1492, but just that history that they tell you about, they don't want you to know that during the time of these Moors ruling, that all the quote-unquote Christians, all the quote-unquote Hebrews or Jews, and all the quote-unquote Muslims were living in peace amongst each other. All right. Yes, they were all living in peace amongst each other. So that's what the whole New Jerusalem concept was really about. People being able to have their faith, because all the Abrahamic faiths basically they all were the same. You know what I'm saying? But they just had their own little swag and their own, little custom flavor to it, I'll say. But nevertheless, they were still all Moorish or melanated people of all shades, you know what I'm saying, from so-called light skin to so-called dark skin. All right. But just through the ego and through a lot of other, fuckery, that's when the bullshit came in. And then a lot of the Christian ones start going against the Muslim ones. And then people start hating on the Hebrew ones, and all this other stuff start going on. And then this divisiveness, which is what you all know it as today. But the different Abrahamic cultures weren't like that. The house of Abraham also, at one point in time, was all under one house. You know what I'm saying? Yes, you did have the wars between the mothers, the Hagarenes and the Saracens, but nevertheless, they were able to get along, because see, the Saracens, that's the dark skinned, the Moorish ones, us, the so-called black ones, those are the Saracens, that's us. But see, Saracens were Hebrews. Saracens, some of them were in Christendom, and then some Saracens were Muslims. So they want you to think that all the Saracens were Muslims, but that's not true. Some of them were so-called Jews or Hebrews, and then some of the Saracens were the original kings and queens, or emperors and empresses of what you all call Christendom, but the original one. All right. So the Saracens were basically the offspring of Abraham through his Hebraic wife, or his Moorish wife. All right. All right. So where was I at? Oh yeah, we was talking about that New Jerusalem. So now let me see real quick. So this is what I want to read real quick before we move on, because people, like I say, people wondering like, well, where is the higher power? All right. The point we must realize is that God cares, or Allah, whatever you want to call him, but God cares. When Moses heard these words, God's concerns became his own. When we make the right choice, when we choose to identify with God's people, God will eventually let us know what's on his heart. Let me repeat that, because that part is real important. Because this is what the Messianic vibration, or the Messianic frequency is going to do. It's going to connect you directly to the higher power. So it's like whatever is on the heart, or whatever is on the mind of the higher power, or what we call God, or the cosmic point, the absolute point, the original one, the original creator. Whatever is on the heart and mind of the creator is not going to be on your heart and mind. And that's going to be very, very heavy. That's very, very heavy, man. For now, whatever is hurting the heart of God, now it's hurting your heart. So that's like having a partner, you know what I'm saying? If your partner go through some bullshit, it's going to make you mad too. So it's like, damn, my partner mad, like shit, that shit going to make me mad too. So that's how it is, So now when God don't like some shit, now you're not going to like it. So, and when you step into that space, and when you have that type of direct connection, your heart going to get real heavy, man. It's going to be a lot of things on your mind. You're going to start seeing the things that the Most High sees and the Most High feels, because it's going to be shared with you, and that can be a very, very heavy thing. So check this out right here. It says that when you make the right choice, God will eventually let you know what's on his mind and on his heart. So for a lot of you people that have gotten into this conscious awareness through your meditations, through your prayers, through your studying, through your good discipline and good behavior, through your chastity, through whatever it is you've been practicing, when you start getting pissed off from some of the things you know, when you start hating the wisdom and knowledge that you've gained, because now that you know so much, you can't be ignorant of it, and now you just see it everywhere, you know, and it's almost like the more justice you know, the more injustice you see. You know what I'm saying? The more you feel like that, the closer and the more you know that you really are dwelling within the, almost like they say, the bosom of God. It's like literally you and God have literally become fully connected. Like y'all have become like fully connected, because the truth of the matter is this, and I really don't give a fuck what no one says. God don't like none of this bullshit he see down here. All this fuckery going on down here, God don't like none of this shit. And it's just like Noble Drew Ali said, like it's rare when you see a good Moor. It's almost like God feel like it's rare when I see a good human on some real shit, especially the damn Moorish ones over there in America, North America at that. It's rare I see one of them doing the right thing, because they the ones I put in the priesthood or the sacerdotal class position. You know what I'm saying? And it's rare I see them doing what they supposed to be doing, you know. So, you know, that's what it is, you know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, you know, I hate to say it, and a lot of people don't like this, but when you all read that book called the Torah or the Old Testament or the Quran, those Abrahamic books, when they talk about those people, the Israelites, you know what I'm saying, those original people, those quote unquote chosen people, you know, and all that type of stuff, that is us here in the Americas, you know what I'm saying, so-called black people right here in North America. You know, you can take that or you can do whatever you want to do with it, but that's what it is with that. So let's go to the reflection real quick. It says, do you feel a burden for a person or a group of people? If so, what do you feel is God's concern for these people? Let me repeat that. It says, do you feel a burden for a person or a group of people? If so, what do you feel is God's concern for these people? Now, even in this, you know, like, I'm not saying that you got to go out here and try to save so-called black people or save the world. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. But nevertheless, you know, it's still going to be on your mind and on your heart. And it's going to be something that you can do in your personal life that's going to be able to chip away at solving that great problem. And you're going to start that by doing that with cleaning up and getting your personal life and you're getting yourself together. And then you're going to help with your family and friends. You know what I'm saying? Your little immediate circle and what's around you. And then once you take care of that, you know, and you know what I'm saying, and it's still within you to go beyond that, then you'll keep on going beyond that. You know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, that's how you really go about doing that. Because you can't save the world. It's more like every Messianic man, every Moorish man has to pretty much take care of his own family and his own household, you know. And when I mean his own family and household, I mean the one that he was born from and the one he's trying to create. Let me repeat that. When I say his own household, I mean the man, the one he was born from and the one he's trying to create. So if your mom or dad kept it real with you and they raised you, and, you know, now that you're getting older, you know, but you know your mom and dad, they're getting much older. You got to keep it real with them and now take care of them in their older age. And then if you have younger siblings, and some of these younger siblings are not really able to take care of themselves the right way, you now have to take on the responsibility of help taking care of them too. So that's the household you came from. And then the new one that you're trying to create, that would mean, you know, when you go and choose a woman that you want to get with, you know what I'm saying? And then you and her, you know, build a good foundation. And then you have children with her. And then now that's your new home. That's your new whole, you know what I'm saying, household. You know, you got your parents, you know what I'm saying, your siblings, you know, your good family you grew up with, you know, that you was born into, you still rock with them. And then you got your new family that you just created. And then you merge both of those together. And as a man, as the Messiah, you take care of that whole thing, you know what I'm saying? And you move forward. So what I'm saying is that as an individual, that's really what we're supposed to be trying to achieve. You know, anything outside of that, I think would be trying to do too much, you know, but that could be just me. I think if every man did that, then nothing would be fucked up with it. every man in every tent, you know, everybody would be under their own vine and fig tree, like it's saying Second Kings. It's saying Second Kings, when King Solomon was ruling, everybody in the houses, all the houses of Israel were under their own vine and fig tree. That means that all those men were ruling their own households and taking care of their own households, and that stuff wasn't spilling over into other people's families, and other men didn't have to take care of it. It wasn't the whole single mother thing and these bastard children and old people in elderly homes and all this other type of fuckery. It wasn't none of that going on. Every man was taking care of his own shit under his own vine and fig tree. So that's part of that Messianic, you know, figure. Like, that's what I'm saying. As a man, you ain't gonna just become that overnight, because you got to be able to have the finances to take care of that. And really, you need to be an entrepreneur, because you got to have the time to really be able to just sit back, kind of kick it, you know, be with your family and friends when you want to, all day if you want, and just be able to make residual money easily and not really have to be there. So you really got to be an entrepreneur. Like I say, the Messiah is a bossed up motherfucker. Like, the Messiah is the high level shit. Like, these niggas talking about, oh, I'm a boss and all that. No, niggas need to be trying to become the Messiah. You know, fuck that. So now I'm gonna go into you know, we talked about how the Messiah, you know, is the upright man and woman. You know, it's the upright man and woman of Israel. That's what that is. And also, too, the Messiah is the future you. So a lot of time, the higher power through your soul, you know, through your dreams, through the mind, through your relaxations, through your daydream, you know, the higher power will show you. It will show you your messianic self. It'll show you your full self and your highest potential. You know, living your best life with your family living good. Everybody got the resources to do what they want. Everybody healthy. You got the love of your life, the kids. You know what I'm saying? You make money the way you want to do it. It's like when everything is just seem like it's perfect. That's the Most High showing you your new Jerusalem. Because the truth of the matter is this. As a man, we all got to create our own new Jerusalem. See, our household, and what I'm talking about of, you know, merging your household you grew up with the new and trying to create, that is your new Jerusalem. So the truth of the matter is this. A lot of people think that the imperial harem was just some whorehouse and some slut house where the Moorish Bey was in there and he just having sex all day with all these women, where that was not the case. The imperial harem not only was a place of a lot of business, governmental stuff, but it was also a place where his mother lived. You know what I'm saying? His mother, you know, his sisters. And believe it or not, the mother is really the one who was over the harem, you know, and took care of that. So it really wasn't just this whorehouse type thing that you think of. So the Moorish Bey, you know, or the Moorish governor, the sheik, you know, he was taking care of his mother, you know, and his wife with his own children. You know, so this is what I'm saying. Like, this is Moorish custom. Like, this is how we've always done it. So, you know, the brothers, we do got to get our shit, you know, on point, and we got to take our time to become the full Messianic figure, because you're not going to be able to just do that overnight. You know, take your time with it. So where am I going next? So right now what we're going to do is read about Chief Blackhawk. In this documented guy, it's a PDF file. You all probably have heard me mention it before. Some of you all may have heard some of this information, but that's not what we're really getting at. This may be for the people who have never heard it. And also, too, I want you to have your ears more so open for the Messianic history, the Messianic verbiage that I'm going to be using and reading in this document, all right? Chief Blackhawk. Chief Blackhawk was the chief of the Sioux or the Sauk. His birth date is not known. The name Blackhawk is reminiscent of the Black Hawk or falcon of Kemetic tradition, representing quote-unquote Heru or Horus, the resurrected son of Osiris, the quote-unquote anointed one. Black Hawk was born Makatame Shikia. Okay, so I'm going to say his name. Chief Blackhawk or Makatai Meshikia. Makatai Meshikia. All right, so that's his name. And also, too, before I go on, a lot of what we call Native American names are really Moorish Hebraic American names. Let me repeat. A lot of what we call Native American names are really Moorish Hebraic, Paleo Hebraic names. All right. So let's continue. Mashiach, spelled Mashiach. Mashiach is the Hebrew word for Messiah, literally meaning the anointed, as we can see Mashiach is the Hebrew word for Messiah, literally means the, quote, anointed, as we can see this is a part of his name. So Chief Blackhawk, or Makatai Meshakia, see Meshakia or Mashiach, all right? So his name is Meshakia, but the Hebrew word for Messiah is Mashiach, all right? So Makatai Meshakia, or Makatai Messiah, or Makatai Mashiach, or Makatai Messiah. See how they go? So Makatai Messiah. That's really what his name is, all right? Which means the anointed one, all right? And also, a lot of us know about the history of Chief Blackhawk with his wars, with the colonial United States and what we call the Midwestern part of North America. All right, so if you want some history on him, you can look him up. And I'm going to give you a picture of him in a minute. His last public appearance was ironically July 4th, 1837, a special day in ancient Moorish Israelite/Egyptian culture in respect to astronomical science. His attire in this painting is very Moorish in tradition. Blackhawk was a terror for the whites in the 1800s and is a part of a legacy of black people who have been written off under Red Indian history and have disassociated from black people as their lineal ancestors, of which they are. The resemblance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is strikingly similar. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to show you a picture of Makatai Meshakia, or Chief Blackhawk, and I'm going to show you a picture of Elijah Muhammad as well. And we can clearly see that they, look very, very similar. So as you can see right here, this is Makatai Meshakia, or Chief Blackhawk. All right, you see him right here? This is him. Clearly you can see he's a so-called black man. All right, copper-colored American. All right. So when I say Moorish, I'm talking about his ethnicity. I'm talking about his ancestral. All right. I'm not talking about his national. His national would be American. All right. So this actually is an ancestor of modern day so-called black people. This is the paragraph I was just reading from. All right. This is Elijah Muhammad. All right. The leader of what we call the Nation of Islam. All right. So as you can see, Elijah Muhammad. All right. And Makatai Meshakia look similar because both of these are indigenous North American men, all right? Indigenous Moorish North American men. Makatai Meshakia, or the Mashiach, all right, who went against the colonial United States corporation who came to destroy the Americans, to destroy us and our people here. He was a courageous one. He was a heroic one, all right? And he went against that bullshit, all right? And also was Elijah Muhammad, all right, restoring Islamic, culture, to the best of what I guess he could do here in North America, all right. So let's move on. Once again, we're still dealing with Messianic history, all right. So now we're going to read about another Moorish American or Messianic figure. All right, so here was another ally of Blackhawk. All right, we're going to read about him. All right. And this one, his name is Mahaska. All right. To the right is Mahaska, another chief with an Aramaic/Hebrew name. Mahaska means the one with man horns. As the painting shows, and it represents his chiefdom, he and his father were recorded to have been in 18 battles with the United States and never lost one. Let me repeat that. I'm talking about Mahaska. Mahaska and his father were recorded to have been in 18 battles with the United States and never lost one. He and his fathers were allies of Blackhawk, or Makatai Meshakia. All right. So Mahaska, all right, a Moorish American, all right, a Hebrew American, had been in 18 battles with the United States, so he was a Messianic figure. He was allies of Chief Blackhawk or Makatai Meshakia. All right, so Blackhawk or Heru, all right, was allies with Mahaska, all right, and they fought against the United States in the 1800s. He traveled with his father to Washington, D.C. in 1824 to meet with President John Quincy Adams, all right. The Secretary of State was Henry Clay. These two, Adams and Clay, were later ordered by Abdur Rahman ibn Hisham to release Abraham ibn Sori, the prince of the slaves, in 1828. Abraham had been touring all over the West, speaking with these chiefs about the laws that were being used to free him under the Moorish statutes. Let me repeat. Abraham had been touring all over the West, speaking with the chiefs about the Moorish laws that were being used to free him under the Moorish status. So what happened was this brother by the name of Abraham ibn Sori, all right, in 1828 was going around North America, going around the Americas, talking to all the kings and the emperors and the chiefs of North America, and talking to them about different Moorish statutes and different Moorish laws and how this could keep them free and how they could keep their national status, keep their own nationality and space, and stay separate and keep their freedom and stay separated from the new incoming United States occupational government. All right. And this man was arrested. So they don't tell you about, these different Moorish statutes that were being used by these chiefs and these emperors here in the Americas to keep their estates. That's how these confederacies and these different, they try to make them seem like they were just different Native American bands and Native American groups and Native American confederacies and Native American, like I say, clans and stuff. But really, these were different governmental groups, coming together under Moorish law. So when I talk about the, the more of the Islamic and the Hebraic stuff, you got to keep in mind that, that's what the original Latin is, the Latin Phoenician writing. All the original government writings is in Latin, so that's the government stuff that I'm talking about. These tribal Native Americans, that they talk about here in North America, they want you to think that they were just some people in teepees, some people in huts, chasing buffaloes, with leather skirts on, that these people knew nothing about government, that these people had no government when the colonial United States came here, that these people had no flags, that these people had no capitals, that these people had no laws, that these people ain't have nothing going on. They want you to believe that shit. They don't want you to understand and know that there was a Hebraic Islamic government here. And the people were Latin speakers, the ancient Latin speakers, the ancient Phoenician speakers, the different Canaanite languages. But one of the modern day ones that they were speaking was what we know of as Latin, or Punic Latin. That goes back to ancient Carthage and Phoenicia. All right. So even Carthage would have been one of the nations, one of the last nations that our people were ruling as well. But it was different, people speaking different languages. But one of the primary ones was Latin. So that's why, and also another thing too, it was no such thing, as like the Catholic Church and the Spanish and all that type of stuff. Like they're not the original ancient Latin speakers. The Latin speakers that I'm talking about, these are the ancient Moorish people, going back to the Carthaginians, the Phoenicians, the ancient Hebraic ones, the different Abrahamic tribes, the ones here in the Americas, them the ones I'm talking about. All right. So that's another thing too. So when we think about the ancient Latin speakers, I want you all to think about ancient Mexico. I want you all to think about the Maya, the Inca, the Aztec. You know what I'm saying? The ones in Palenque, the ones in the Yucatan, the pyramid builders and what we call Central America. Those are the ancient Latin speakers that I'm talking about. Those are the ancient Canaanites and the ancient Hebrews that I'm talking about. The ancient Israelites that I'm talking about. Those are the pyramid builders. And those people's empires and kingdoms stretch not only from what we call modern day Central America and modern day Mexico, but it was all the way through what we call the Gulf of Mexico as well, into the southeast. on up in the East Coast into the Carolinas, Virginia, etc. All right. So when I say the ancient Latin speakers, also keep in mind that was some shit going on right here in the Americas. So let's move forward. Still just going over the Messianic history. All right. So now I want you to get a picture of Mahaska. This is Mahaska. All right. So we saw a picture of Chief Blackhawk or Chief Makatai Meshakia. All right. But that's Mahaska. All right. Clearly you can see a Moorish or so-called Negro. So that's another thing. When we say Moorish, we're talking about ethnicity. So they usually will try to call you either black or they will call you Negro. But all Blackbeard is doing is just calling you Moorish. I'm giving you something that's not derogatory, and I'm giving you something that maybe not all of our ancestors directly called them, but when it comes to certain literature, and when it comes to Amaru, which was the original ancient people who started the American empire down in South America or in the Peruvian Empire, and those were the Atlanteans. They say when Atlantis was destroyed, that the Americas was basically repopulated and the Americas was reinstituted by Amaru. And that started down in South America, in the Andes, and it stretched all the way up into what we know of as Mexico. Then it came into the Gulf of Mexico, etc., on into North America. So when I say Amaru, or when I say Moorish, or when I say Moors, I'm talking about ethnicity, all right? So these are the so-called Negro or the so-called black people, the copper-colored ones, the Aboriginal ones, the Indigenous ones, the ones that come straight from the earth, the ones that sprung from the earth, the autochthonous ones, the Saturnian color ones, the ones that look like they could blend into the forest, that come in all shades of browns, etc. Those people, the natural-born people. All right, that's all I mean by when I say the word Moorish. That's it. But their national character could have been, any damn nation you see, on the United Nations. They could have been from any one of them nations. But if it was a so-called Negro person, that looked like the people that we call quote-unquote African-American, to eliminate confusion, I call them Moorish. So let's continue. So next we're going to read about, let's see, we read about Mahaska, a Messianic figure. So now we're going to move on to another Messianic figure, Tustanugi, all right, Tustanugi, who was a Messianic Moorish indigenous man from modern day what we call Florida, which was really Granada. So let me repeat that. What we call Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, basically I would say the southeast woodlands of North America. The southeastern woodlands of North America, including Florida. This is very, very important what I'm about to tell you all, because I want you all to understand who the ancient Latin speakers are, all that. What we call the southeastern states today, like I say, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, like the whole southeast region, right? There is an ancient map. I wish I had it right here in front of me, but I saw it just through my research and studying. But I saw an ancient map from the 15 to 1600s, I believe. And it had the whole southeastern region of North America named Granada. Yes, it had it named Granada. So my question to this is I thought Granada was in Spain over in the Mediterranean in what we call Southern Europa or Southern Europe. If there's an ancient map with Granada here in North America, but they got it in the southeastern states, and they call it the land in the southeast, Granada, that means that's where Granada was, and that's where the ancient Latin speakers were. And that's where they still are today. So all those tribes from the southeastern states, those are, the ancient Moorish people from Granada, So don't believe that when they say ancient Granada or well, that's another thing too. Like, see, for us, I could say ancient Granada for us. See, that could be a real thing for us. Me saying ancient Granada, At first I was thinking, damn, that's a Freudian slip. But really for us, that's some real shit, ancient Granada. But that wouldn't be nothing real for no pale people, not no Visigothic descendant people, not the wild Germanic tribes, not the Cro-Magnon or the Neanderthal tribal people. They couldn't say ancient Granada. But me being of, having Moorish ancestry, I could say ancient Granada, So I just wanted to kind of spend a little time on that because I do see a lot of trickery, when it comes to who these Spanish were, like, because I mean they tricked me at first. You know what I'm saying? That's how real the shit is. Like, I ain't gonna even sit here and flex to y'all. Like, the motherfuckers tricked Blackbeard. So, I didn't even know that fucking Spain was really in North America, in what we call Mexico and all that. Like, I didn't know that shit at first when I was growing up. But let's continue. All right, and this is the last one I'm gonna read about. I'll show you a picture. All right, Tustanugi was also known as Abraham, was a maroon or a mu or a mo amongst the Seminoles. So I'm reading about a Seminole Messianic figure. Now pause real quick. The Seminole Wars, all right, was going on at the same time what we know of as the quote-unquote Civil War. Now, what I talk about in my book a little bit is how the Seminole Wars really is the Civil War. So when they talk about the Seminole Wars, that's also the American Civil War. So when they talk about the Union versus the Confederacy, that's also the Union versus the Seminoles. Okay? The Union versus the ancient Grenadans, the ancient Moors, all right, from Florida, all right, from the Everglades, all right. So Tustanugi came from that ancestral line of people in those tribes. So it says that Tustanugi was a chief of the Seminoles. He was their chief legal counsel and interpreter. It was he who was at Fort Negro in 1816 flying the Moorish flag of the Islamic empires. This is the famous cherry tree that was later chopped down. Abraham soon moved to the west to Oklahoma, and Chief Halito Miko and Chief Himha Miko disappeared in the Everglades. This was the start of the Penn Secret Society and other secret societies among the among the Creek and the Cherokee, excuse me. So what I wanted you to get out of that is Tustanugi. We're gonna look at a picture of him, but I wanted you to understand that at Fort Negro in 1816, when the people from Granada were fighting against Andrew Jackson, when he was coming in with his whole Indian Removal Act and all his genocidal craziness, the Moorish Empire is the Confederacy in the Civil War. And they were fighting against Andrew Jackson and the Union and them coming in here. And Chief Tustanugi, or Abraham, was flying the Moorish red flag in Fort Negro, which was in Georgia and Florida. All right, and I'm going to show you a picture of it. So that's the paragraph I was just reading from. This is a picture of Tustanugi, all right, and probably his wife, all right. So these are the ancient, these are really descendants of the ancient Grenadans, all right, of the southeastern woodlands of North America, all right, which we call modern day Florida and Georgia and that stuff, all right. So once again, another Messianic figure, all right, another Messianic archetype, Hebrew archetype, Tustanugi, all right, a courageous one. All right, so let's see where we at now. So now we're going to read, all right, about an ancient rite, because a lot of us know that the Messianic one, or the Messiah, or the Mashiach, all right. Also, before I go on too, and I talk about this in my book as well, the word Mexico, like I just said, Mexico is actually part of ancient Carthage. All right. Also, too, Blackbeard. I had a girlfriend before. She was from Carthage, Mississippi. She was from Carthage, Mississippi. I'll never forget it. When she told me that shit, I'm like, wow. I thought Carthage was somewhere over in fucking Europe or Northwest Africa. There's a Carthage in Mississippi. So Mississippi, Carthage, the Phoenicians, the ancient Latin speakers. But anyway, the word Mexico comes from Meshio, which is another word for Mashiach or Messiah. So the word Mexico means Messiah. It's a Hebrew word, Mashiach, Mexico, Meshio. This was a word that was heard by James Adair, and he recorded this in his book, History of the American Indian. He heard the indigenous North American Hebrews, the American copper-colored Hebrews. He heard them chanting the word Meshio, 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 Yahawashai, Yahawashai, Yahawashai. He heard them chant this word. The ancient Latin speakers of the southeastern woodlands, what we call the southeast states, what we call Alabama and Georgia and the Carolinas and Florida. He heard these people chanting the word Meshio. Why are copper-colored people in modern-day Alabama and Georgia and Florida and Carolina, why are they chanting ancient words that are saying Mexico, Mexico, Mexico? Because they're the same people. They're the mound builders. They're the pyramid builders. They are the Aztec. They are the Maya. They are the ancient Palenque, the people from ancient Palenque, the Olmeca. That's them. Same people. All right. So we better read about an ancient rite of the anointing of the Mashiach. All right. So this was a ritual or an initiation ceremony, more so, for the anointed one. We're going to read about it real quick before we go to the next thing. Once again, we're just dealing with the history of the Messiah, just so you'll know that our people have always talked about the courageous one. All right. It's an ancient thing, and it's been in each culture. All right. Whether it been Hamitic or Semitic. All right, let's read about it. The Messianic mental baptism, or the initiate into universal serious mysteries. All right, so we're going to read about the Syrian mysteries. All right, the pyramid and the mounds in North America and Central America and South America, along with the ones in what we call modern day Egypt, along with some of the ones in what we call Far East Asia. The pyramids are aligned with the Syrian complex, all right, or the constellation of Sirius, all right. So let's read about that. Isis, or spiritual or Sirius law, spiritual law, and Nephthys, spiritual or Sirius C, commerce/lineage, were said to be weeping from the death of Asar, or Sirius B, execution of law. As is so often the case with Masonic symbolism, the secrets of baptism are involved with ancient Egyptian iconography and hieroglyphics. In this image, the gods are portrayed as weeping as they are throwing drops of sacred water. The Egyptian hieroglyphs MST, which looks like the threefold fall of water, actually means dew and portrays drops of water falling from heaven. The same hieroglyphic also means instruction or teaching. The 19th century Masonic scholar John Simmons believed that the sound values of Egyptian hieroglyphics were more closely linked with the Hebrew language than with the Coptic language. So let me pause with that real quick. So this 19th century Mason by the name of John Simmons, this scholar, believed that the sound values of the Egyptian hieroglyphics sounded more like the Hebrew language than the Coptic language. So just keep that in mind. When examining the hieroglyphic MST, he pointed out that the Hebrew IRE means to throw drops of water, to sprinkle, and to teach or instruct. Ire is related to the I in English and Latin, and it is the eye of Horus that is seen over the pyramid representing the great architect. It's very, very deep, y'all. He further pointed out that this hieroglyphic is linked with Egyptian baptism, with the notion of shedding celestial dew on the head of the neophyte, which is the initiate, with initiation, excuse me. In support of his argument, he examined a plate which showed an Egyptian initiation scene where the god Horus or Heru and Thoth pour sacred waters on the head of the neophyte. The one initiated in this way by water and fire was called in Hebrew Msche, meaning something like begotten, also saved or born again, a word relevant to the new state of the neophyte, or the one being initiated. According to Simmons, the Egyptian hieroglyphic equivalent of this MSCH, or Moses, incorporated the image for dew, baptism, or celestial tears. It was the anointing of a master. So let's go through all this so we'll see deeper into these Messianic or these Mashiach mysteries that really go back to ancient Egypt. All right. So when we say ancient Egypt, we also talking about the ancient Hebraic culture as well, or the ancient Islamic culture as well. All right. So the first thing is it's going to the Egyptian mystery story of when Osar is killed, or when Yahweh or Jesus is hung on the cross. Mary and the different women are crying for Jesus or Yeshua. And when Osar is killed, Isis and Nephthys are crying for Osar. Those tears are named in the Egyptian hieroglyphic MST, or the sacred water, or the dew. And these sacred waters, or this dew, is also a hieroglyphic that stands for teaching or instruction. So the tears are also the same hieroglyphic for teaching and instruction. All right. Then there was a 19th century Mason by the name of John Simmons, and through his studying, he comes to the conclusion that the hieroglyphic for MST is connected to the Hebrew IRE, which means throwing drops of water, or teaching or instructing. All right. And it's related in English and in Latin to the Eye of Horus, which is seen on top of the pyramid. So the one on the top of the pyramid is the grand architect, or the one who also instructs or teaches. All right. So it's all talking about the anointing of the grand master. All right. The oil. Okay. So when they talk about the anointing, or the Mashiach, or the Messiah, it's the anointing of the master. So also Moses, that's a Mashiach or a master. So Moses could be anybody who just rises to this soul initiation through their own trials and tribulation when the higher power takes you through that. You know what I'm saying? That's something personal, and that's just a spiritual individual journey that you go through, as a man. You know what I'm saying? So that's what that is. So the Hebraic, Islamic, Egyptian culture, that's all one and the same. All right? That's all one and the same. So just keep in mind too, it says that the Eye of Horus in Latin and English, because in Latin they call it Lucifer. Okay, Lucifer, the light bringer. All right. So the light bringer is also the Messiah, or the Mashiach. So that's why they don't want you reading into the Luciferian mysteries, not the satanic adrenochrome baby eating, not the Babylonian shit, not that Luciferian rebellion shit that we talked about in the tape last week with the cherubim and the seraphim, the wicked ones. Not that Luciferian rebellious adversarial stuff, but I'm talking about more so the light bringer. All right, that's the more so the Latin stuff, that you'll see more so in the Moorish Christendom, the mysteries of Lucifer. They deal with that more. All right. So before we move on, I want you to get a picture. This is a picture of the anointing of Moses, or the Messiah, or the Mashiach, by Heru and Thoth. Thoth anointing by water, or the moon, or the lunar. Heru anointing by fire, or the solar principle. All right. And this is the paragraph I was reading from. All right. Once again, you can see the copper-colored people. All right. This is American. All right. So we're talking about Heru and the Egyptian and all that too. We're not talking about nowhere in the Middle East. All right. So the final thing I want to read is this book I have called The Encyclopedia of Demons and Demonology. The Encyclopedia of Demons and Demonology. And we're going to read about entity contacts. Now, a little while earlier, I talked about Aleister Crowley in one of his, quote unquote meditations, coming across an entity that he named AWAS, But when we read through a little bit, we're going to see that Aiwass is basically the Moorish or the Hebraic Christ archetype. Let me repeat. Aiwass is the Moorish Hebraic American Christ archetype. So if you all come across that word in your studies, Aiwass, understand that that is Heru or the Mashiach. All right, that's who that is. That's Aiwass. All right, and that's what Aleister Crowley described it as. So let's read about this. On March 18th, 1904, Rose suddenly began trans-channeling, receiving communications from the astral plane that the Egyptian god Horus, or Heru, was waiting for Aleister Crowley. The communicating messenger Aiwass was an imposing entity described by Rose as an emissary for the Egyptian trinity of Horus, Asar, and Aset. So before I go into this, Aleister Crowley was in Cairo, Egypt on March 18th, 1904. And his girlfriend, I can't remember her first name or her last name rather, but I think her Rose is either her first or last name. But his girlfriend basically went into like a meditation or a trance, and her readings and what she was downloading was all this information about this certain stellar. And it was about this, Christ archetype of this Mashiach, by the name of Heru. And she really didn't know anything about this stuff. And Aleister Crowley, in his writings, he said that he had never even told her about any of this Egyptian stuff. So he knew that this had to be maybe something a little genuine. Maybe he was getting somewhere, because she didn't know anything about Egyptian or Moorish history. So, that's what this is coming from. That's the backdrop to this. So it says, Crowley considered Aiwass to be his holy guardian angel or divine higher self, acting as intermediary for higher beings such as the secret chiefs, superhuman adepts of the Golden Dawn. Now, this is very, very important, because I want you all to understand that all these secret societies out here, the Golden Dawn, the Skull and Bones, I'm talking about the Caucasian ones, all these secret societies, the Muslim Brotherhood, most of the demons and angels and all that stuff that they worship, believe it or not, are Messianic archetypes, Hebraic Moorish figures. You know what I'm saying? That's really who they worshiping. And they calling them demons. Let me repeat that. What they calling demons, all right, and who these secret societies are worshiping, they worshiping ancient Moorish courageous figures. That's who they worshiping. And they trying to get that messianic energy. All right. So let's continue. So Aiwass is one of them. All right. Now you're gonna see in a minute they're gonna call him a demon, but I just wanted you to understand that. And I also want you to understand that he's saying that this is his higher self, which is not true. You know what I'm saying? Which more than likely isn't true. He more than likely came into an encounter from some other person projecting their higher self, and it went and gave him some information. But anyway, let's continue. So I will read this. Crowley considered Aiwass to be his holy guardian angel, or divine higher self, acting as intermediary for higher beings such as the secret chiefs, or superhuman adepts of the secret Golden Dawn. Occultists have debated whether Aiwass was an entity in his own right or part of Crowley himself. For Crowley, the holy guardian angel was a discrete entity and not a disassociated part of his own personality. Crowley originally spelled the entity's name Aiwaz, A-I-W-A-Z, then later changed the spelling to A-I-W-A-S-S for numerological reasons, Crowley envisioned Aiwass as a male entity. Now listen up to this, because he's about to describe how Aiwass looked to him. He's about to describe to you all the Mashiach or the Christ. He's about to describe to you all how a Moorish man appeared to him and how a Moorish man dressed prior to him being made a Christian and all this different shit. Crowley envisioned Aiwass as a male entity, as one distinctly different and more unfathomable than any other entities he had encountered. Answers to questions posed by Crowley indicated that Aiwass was, now quote, now this is some of the stuff that Aleister Crowley wrote himself about Aiwass. And you can go and you can do your own research on this, but this is what this man wrote. All right. Once again, we're just going into the history of the Messianic energy and it expressing itself through literature, going into the consciousness of other people as they meditating, and also working through men in America as they fight to free their people. I want you to see that the Messianic energy works on multiple planes, okay? So this is what he wrote about Aiwass. He said that Aiwass was, quote, a being whose mind was so different from mine that we failed to converse. All my wife obtained from him was to command me to do things magically absurd. He would not play my game. I must play his. So Crawley said that he had to do a lot of absurd things, basically to try to even, I guess, to really receive the message from Aiwass. All right. But what he is calling a being whose mind was so different from his, how do we know that these couldn't have been just some Moorish men from the future who were doing some interstellar type shit and communicating back with the third dimension, really fucking with him? You know what I'm saying? Who knows? You know, who knows? I didn't mean to interject like that, but I just had to put that in there. Who really knows what this man was experiencing? But it's going to be a little deeper because he's going to describe Aiwass physically. All right. On April 7th, 1904, Aiwass commanded that the drawing room of the Cairo apartment leased by Crawley had been turned into a temple. Aiwass ordered Crawley to enter the temple precisely at noon on the next 3 days and to write down exactly what he heard for precisely 1 hour. All right. Crawley followed the instructions. Inside the temple, he sat alone at a table facing the southern wall. From behind him, he heard the voice of Aiwass, which Crawley described as, quote, now he's describing the voice of Aiwass, a rich tenor or baritone, deep timbre, musical and expressive, its tone solemn, voluptuous, tender, fierce, or aught else as suited with the moods of a message. So in other words, Aiwass could have sounded like damn Barry White. How do we know that he wasn't really just describing a man with a deep voice? Don't the so-called black man be having a deep voice? Just like your boy Blackbeard. But anyway, the voice was, quote, the speech in the silence, he said. Later he called Aiwass, quote, the minister of Harpocrat, or, quote, the Lord of Silence, an aspect of Horus or Heru that was equivalent of the god Harpocrat, Greek god Harpocrat, excuse me. During the dictation, Crawley did not see a visual apparition of Aiwass, though he did have a mental impression of the entity. So he didn't see a physical, actually, apparatus of Aiwass with his eyes, but it says that he had a mental impression of it. So now we're going to read about the mental impression that he had about Aiwass, all right? So it says that, quote, Aiwass had a body of fine matter or astral matter, transparent as a veil of gaze or a cloud of incense smoke. He seemed to be a tall, dark man in his 30s, well knit, active and strong, with the face of a savage king and eyes veiled lest their gaze should destroy what they saw. Further, Aiwass seemed to be dressed in the garb of an Assyrian or a Persian. So Aleister Crowley described Aiwass as being tall, having a deep voice. He said that he was a dark man in his 30s. So first of all, not only are you able to describe, the man's height, but even you're able to describe how his features look. So he looked like he may have been in his 30s. So in other words, he was a mature looking man. So this is the Christ that he's describing to you. Did they say that the Messiah died when he was 33 years old? Let me reread this. It said that Aiwass had a body of fine matter or astral matter, transparent as veil of gaze or a cloud of incense smoke. He seemed to be a tall, dark man in his 30s, well knit and active and strong, with the face of a savage king and eyes veiled lest their gaze should destroy what they saw. So that's how they described the Christ in Revelation 2. Didn't they say that his eyes were of fire? All right. So who Aiwass is describing here, that he's also calling Heru, he's also describing the Mashiach of the Hebrew culture. So I'm talking about really one Christ archetype that really, you know what I'm saying, has been showing up, I guess, throughout time and just expressing itself through different cultures. All right. And then he's saying that Aiwass was dressed in an Assyrian or a Persian garb. So in other words, he was wearing a Moorish garb or an Islamic or an Egyptian looking garb. That's what Moorish attire is. That's what the Hebrews wear. Okay. So now we're going to look at a picture of Aiwass real quick, and then we're going to wrap this up. So this is a picture of Aiwass that was drawn, not necessarily by Crowley, but this was drawn by somebody named Richard Cook, based on some of Crowley's descriptions. Now, what I want you to understand is this. He said that Aiwass was a tall, dark man in his 30s. He had the face of a savage king. The Mashiach was a tall man in his 30s, and he was a serious and he was an active man. Now, I want you to look very, very close at this picture of Aiwass. I want you to look at his nose features, and I want you to look at his lip features. And he also said that Aiwass is Heru, okay? So Heru is also an Aiwass, all right? Look at these features. Look at his nose features. Look at his lip features. They look Moorish, or they look quote-unquote Negro, or they look quote-unquote black. And clearly you can see he's wearing some type of Moorish or some type of, Hebraic headdress or some type of cape or hood, which is something that, we would wear in the ancient world. So this is a picture of Aiwass or Heru or the Mashiach or the Messiah that Aleister Crowley saw in a mental image. So this is a cosmic thing. This is something that's, like I say, this is something that we still are trying to learn and understand, all right? So to get ready to wrap this up, I just wanted to go into this tape, and drop this science dealing with the Mashiach and, to give y'all some courage, to let you know that this energy is within you and it can only vibrate in you when you allow it. So don't deal with no type of fear and just stay strong out there, and y'all, stay down and come up, keep growing and glowing, and stay focused. All right. So it's your boy Blackbeard. One love. I'm out.